You think losing money is the worst thing that can happen to you in Thailand. It's not. The worst thing is losing your sense of reality, waking up one morning and realizing you don't know who you are anymore, what you believed in, or why you thought any of it would work. Money you can earn back. Your mind? That's gone for good. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our viewers. He asked us not to share his name, but he wanted his experience heard. My wife died 3 years before I left Australia. Cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. The house in Hobart felt like a museum after that. Every room a monument to someone who wasn't coming back. My kids had moved to Brisbane and Sydney years before, chasing jobs and sun. My mates from the mines were either dead, dying, or too broken to leave their recliners. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning out of habit, make coffee for 2. Then remember, the cold in Tasmania isn't just weather. It gets inside you. After Margaret died, I couldn't get warm. I'd sit in the house with the heater on full blast, wrapped in blankets, and still feel frozen. One morning I woke up and thought, what am I doing here? There was no answer, so I started looking for one. A bloke I worked with, Dave, had retired to Chiang Mai a few years back. He kept posting photos on Facebook, smiling, tanned, surrounded by people at night markets and temples. He looked alive. I hadn't felt alive in years. I started researching. Chiang Mai seemed too crowded, too full of tourists and expats comparing pension checks. Then I found Udon Thani, smaller city, real Thailand, lower cost of living. The forum said it was friendly, safe, warm all year. That's all I needed. Warm and safe. I sold the house for 480,000 Australian dollars, paid off what was left on the mortgage, gave 50 grand to each of my kids, settled some debts. I kept 140,000 for myself. About 100,000 US dollars. I wasn't rich, but I didn't need to be. I just needed enough to buy a little land, build a small house, and live quietly until my body gave out. I wasn't looking for adventure. I was looking for peace. Maybe a reason to wake up that didn't feel like punishment. I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok, then a bus ticket north. 2 suitcases, that's all I brought. Everything else I gave away or threw out. Margaret's clothes, the furniture, the wedding photos. I couldn't carry it anymore. I landed in Udon Thani on a Tuesday in late March. The heat hit me like a wall when I stepped off the bus, thick, wet, suffocating, but I liked it. It felt like being alive. I checked into a guest house near the city center, 300 baht a night, about $12. The room was small, clean enough, with a fan that rattled all night. I didn't care. I spent the first few days just walking. The streets were chaotic, motorbikes everywhere, street vendors selling food I couldn't name, stray dogs sleeping in the shade. Nobody spoke much English, but it didn't matter. People smiled. I smiled back. For the first time in years, I felt anonymous in a good way, not lonely, just free. On my 5th day, I needed to use the internet to check my bank account, make sure the money had transferred properly. I found a small café near the market. It was quiet inside, cool, with a few tables and a counter where a young woman was helping a French couple print their boarding passes. She was patient with them, explaining slowly, smiling when they got confused. When they left, she looked at me and said, "You need something?" Her English was clear, soft. I asked if I could use the Wi-Fi. She wrote the password on a napkin and handed it to me. I noticed her hands small, rough, like she worked with them. I sat down, logged in, checked my accounts. Everything was fine. When I got up to leave, I thanked her. She asked where I was from. I said Australia. She tilted her head. "Where in Australia?" I said Tasmania. She laughed. "I don't know this place." So I described it, an island south of the mainland, cold, green, lots of mountains. She listened, then took the napkin back and drew a little map of Australia with Tasmania as a tiny dot at the bottom. She wrote Hobart next to it. I don't know why that hit me so hard, but it did. She didn't have to do that. I left the cafe feeling lighter than I had in months. The next day, I went back. Her name was Kultida, but she said everyone called her Tid. She worked at the cafe 6 days a week, morning to evening. I started going there every afternoon, buying coffee I didn't need, sitting at the same table. We'd talk when she wasn't busy. Small things at first, the weather, the food, how I was adjusting. She asked if I missed home. I said no. She seemed to understand that. After about a week, she started finishing work and walking with me to the night market. She knew all the best stalls, where to get the freshest spring rolls, which vendor had the spiciest somtam, how to bargain without offending anyone. She'd translate for me, laugh when I couldn't handle the heat. I liked being around her. She didn't treat me like a tourist or an old man. She just treated me like a person. One evening, we were sitting on a bench near the market, eating grilled pork skewers, and she told me she had a daughter, Preu, 9 years old. Lived with Tid's mother, in a village about 40 minutes away. The father left when Preu was a baby. Tid sent money home every month, visited on Sundays. She'd been working 2 jobs since she was 19. I asked if it was hard. She shrugged. Everyone work hard in Thailand. It's normal. I admired that about her. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't asking for anything. She was just living. A few days later, she invited me to meet Preu. I hesitated. Meeting her daughter felt serious, like crossing a line, but I said yes. We took a song thiu out to the village on a Sunday morning. Preu was shy at first, hiding behind her grandmother, clutching a stuffed elephant. But when Tid told her I was from an island, Preu's eyes went wide. She asked if I'd seen kangaroos. I said not in Tasmania, but on the mainland, yes. She made me describe them. I did my best. She giggled. By the end of the visit, she was sitting next to me, showing me her drawings. Tid watched us with this soft smile. On the ride back, she said, "Preu likes you." I didn't know what to say. I hadn't felt needed in years. It scared me, but it also felt good. 3 months into my time in Udon Thani, Tid mentioned something that changed everything. We were having dinner at a small restaurant near her apartment. She said her uncle owned some land outside the city, 5 rai, near a small lake. Beautiful, quiet. He was getting old and wanted to sell it before he couldn't manage it anymore. She said it casually, like she was just making conversation. But I asked if I could see it. She looked surprised, then nodded. The following Sunday, we drove out on her motorbike. The land was stunning, flat, green, bordered by trees on 3 sides, with a narrow dirt road leading back to the main highway. You could see the lake in the distance, shimmering in the heat. It was quiet. No neighbors, no traffic, just the sound of birds and wind through the grass. I stood there for a long time, just looking. Tid stood next to me, quiet. Finally, she said, "If you buy, we could build house. Small, simple. I help you. My cousin is builder. We keep cost low. You live here peaceful." She paused. "Maybe. If you want. Preu and I could live here too. Not now, but someday." She said it looking away, like she was embarrassed. I felt something shift in my chest. I'd been drifting for 3 years. No purpose, no plan, just surviving. This was something real. Something I could build. I asked how much her uncle wanted. She said 2.5 million baht. I did the math in my head. About $70,000. It seemed reasonable. She said it was under market value because he trusted family. I didn't hesitate. I said yes. Tid turned to me, and I saw tears in her eyes. She hugged me. Tight. She said, "Thank you. You are a good man." I felt like a hero, like I'd finally done something that mattered. I transferred the money within a week. $70,000, straight from my Australian account to a Thai bank account Tid set up. She handled everything, met with her uncle, arranged the paperwork, hired a lawyer she said she trusted. I didn't understand the legal process. She explained that foreigners can't own land outright in Thailand. The deed would go in her name, but there'd be a leasehold agreement protecting my investment. 30 years, she said. Renewable. She showed me the documents, all in Thai. I asked her to translate the important parts. She did. I signed. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She'd never asked me for anything. 2 weeks later, construction began. Tid's cousin, a guy named Somkid, showed up with a small crew. They worked fast. I visited the site every day, watching the foundation go in, the walls rise, the roof take shape. I started imagining my future. Mornings on the porch with coffee, watching the sun come up over the lake, Preyu running around the yard, Tid cooking in the kitchen. Maybe her mother would visit. Maybe my kids would come see me, see what I'd built. I took photos every day, sent them to my son and daughter. They didn't respond much. A thumbs up here and there. I told myself they were busy. It didn't matter. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't just surviving. I was building something. I was happy. 4 months into construction, I noticed Tid was different, quieter, distracted. She'd finish work and say she was too tired to meet up. I'd ask if everything was okay. She'd say yes, but I could tell it wasn't. One evening, I pushed. I said, "Tid, what's wrong? You can tell me." She looked at me for a long time. Then her eyes filled with tears. She said there was a problem with Preyu's school. They were behind on tuition. If she didn't pay soon, Preyu would be expelled. 80,000 baht, about $2,300. I asked why she didn't tell me sooner. She said she didn't want to burden me. I said it wasn't a burden. I transferred the money that afternoon. Tid cried, thanked me, said I'd saved them. I felt good. I felt useful. A week later, her motorbike broke down. She needed a new one to get to work. 50,000 baht. I paid. Then her mother got sick. Hospital bills, 35,000 baht. I paid. Each time, Tid was grateful. She'd hug me, thank me, promise to pay me back when she could. I told her not to worry about it. I had money. What else was I going to spend it on? But something felt different. She stopped coming to the construction site with me. When I asked why, she said she was busy. Too much work. I tried not to worry. I told myself relationships have ups and downs. This was just life. But at night, alone in my guest house, I'd lie awake and wonder. 6 months after we broke ground, the house was finished. 2 bedrooms, open kitchen, wide porch overlooking the land. It was modest, but it was beautiful. I was so proud. I invited Tid and Preyu to come see it. They came on a Sunday. Preyu ran around, exploring every room, laughing. But Tid was quiet, distant. I asked when they'd move in. She said soon, but the way she said it made my stomach tighten. That night, I stayed in the house for the first time. I thought it would feel like home. It didn't. It felt empty, silent. No neighbors, no streetlights, just darkness and the sound of insects. I tried calling Tid. No answer. I texted her. Nothing. The next morning, she replied, "Sorry, phone died. Busy today." I drove to her apartment. She wasn't there. I went to the café. Her coworker said she'd taken the week off. My chest tightened. I went back to the house, sat on the porch, and stared at the empty road. I didn't understand what was happening, but I felt it. Something was wrong. I spent 2 days trying to reach Tid. Calls, texts, nothing. Finally, she called me back. Her voice was cold, flat. She said, "We need to talk." "But not now," I said. "No, now. What's going on?" She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, hands shaking. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I could think of. I went to see the lawyer, the one Tid had recommended. His office was small, cluttered, in a building near the market. When I walked in, he looked uncomfortable. I said, "I need to see the leasehold agreement for the land." He hesitated. Then he pulled out a folder. I couldn't read Thai, but I recognized my signature. I said, "Explain this to me, in English." He wouldn't look at me. He said the lease was valid, but it was only for 10 years, not 30. And there was no clause protecting my investment if Tid decided to sell. I felt the room tilt. I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "Land is in her name. You are tenant. She is owner." I asked if I could contest it. He shrugged. "Difficult. Expensive. You probably lose." I walked out of that office in a daze. I'd spent $70,000 on land I didn't own. I'd built a house on property that could be sold out from under me, and I had no legal recourse. None. I drove straight to Tid's apartment. She was there. So was a man I'd never seen before, mid-30s, local, confident. He was sitting on her couch like he lived there. Tid didn't introduce him. I said, "Who is he?" She said, "A friend." My voice rose. "A friend? Tid, what the hell is going on? Why did you lie to me about the lease?" The man stood up, told me to calm down. I ignored him. I focused on Tid. "Why aren't you moving into the house? Why won't you answer my calls?" She wouldn't look at me. "Finally," she said, voice flat. "I never said I would live there forever. You assumed." I felt like I'd been punched. I said, "What about the money? The school tuition, the motorbike, your mother's hospital bills?" She shrugged. "You gave it freely. I didn't force you." The man smirked. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream, but all I felt was humiliation. I was the joke. I asked, quietly, "Was any of it real?" Tid finally looked at me. Her eyes were empty. She said, "I needed help. You needed to feel needed. We both got something." I left without another word. I moved into the house full time. I had nowhere else to go. The guest house felt too public, too humiliating. At least here, I was alone. I spent my days sitting on the porch, staring at the land I thought was mine. I stopped eating properly. Lost weight. My clothes hung off me. I tried calling my kids. My son answered once, distracted. Said he was at work. I didn't tell him what happened. I was too ashamed. At night, I replayed every conversation with Tid, looking for the signs I missed. They were all there. The vague answers, the deflections, the emotional distance that started the moment I transferred the money for the land. I was so desperate to believe in something that I ignored reality. One evening, a man stopped by. Older Thai guy. Maybe 70. Lived down the road. He spoke broken English. He asked if I was okay. I lied, said I was fine. He nodded, unconvinced. Before he left, he said, "Farang always build house for Thai girl. Thai girl always leave." Then he walked away. I sat with that for a long time. 2 weeks later, Wichai showed up at the house. Unannounced, he looked guilty. He said, "I need to tell you something." I let him in. He said Tid was selling the land. A developer from Bangkok was buying it. They wanted to build a resort. She'd make 4 million baht, nearly double what I paid. Wichai said he tried to talk her out of it, but she wouldn't listen. He came to warn me because he felt bad. I asked how long I had. He said 30 days, maybe less. I asked if there was anything I could do. He shook his head. "You have no legal claim." "I'm sorry." I thanked him. After he left, I sat on the porch and laughed. A hollow, broken sound. I'd spent $100,000 to build someone else's retirement fund. The house I built with my own hope, my own hands, would be bulldozed in a month. I wondered if Tid ever thought about me. I doubted it. I spent the next week in a fog. I thought about going back to Australia. But I had less than $15,000 left. Not enough to start over. Not enough to buy a place. I'd have to rent, live on the pension, beg my kids for help. I couldn't do it. One afternoon, I got a message. From Tid's number. It was a photo. Preyu, in a new school uniform. Smiling. The caption said, "Thank you for your support." I stared at that photo for an hour. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was empty. I wondered if Preyu even knew who I was. If Tid had told her. I replied, "Take care of her." No response. I started packing my things. I didn't have much. I took one last walk around the property. Ran my hand along the walls I'd watched being built. Insisted on an independent lawyer. Demanded contracts in English. Listened to my gut. But I didn't. Because I wanted to believe. I needed to believe. My last night in the house, I sat on the porch with a bottle of cheap whiskey, watching the sun set over the land. I thought about Margaret, how she would have seen through Tid immediately, how she would have stopped me. I missed her more now than I did 3 years ago. I thought about my kids. About the mates I left behind in Hobart. I wondered if they knew this would happen. Maybe everyone did except me. I got drunk. Not enough to pass out, just enough to feel nothing. Around midnight, I heard a car pull up. I tensed. But it was the neighbor. The old Thai man from before. He was carrying a bag of food. He sat down next to me without asking, handed me a container of rice and curry. We ate in silence. After a while, he said, "You learn." I nodded. He patted my shoulder and left. I finished the food, then went inside and lay down on the floor. Tomorrow, I'd figure out what's next. Tonight, I just needed to survive. I'm back in a guest house now. The cheapest one I could find, 200 baht a night. I've been here 2 weeks. I spend my days walking, thinking, trying to figure out my next move. I can't afford to go back to Australia. I'm too proud to ask my kids for help. I applied for a few teaching jobs, English conversation gigs that pay almost nothing, but it's something. One afternoon, I ran into the neighbor from the land. He invited me for coffee. We talked. He told me his own story. Lost money to a business partner 20 years ago. Almost gave up. Stayed anyway. He said, "Thailand not easy, but if you stay, you survive different, stronger maybe, or just older." I laughed. First time in weeks. I'm not sure what I'll do, but I know I'm not going home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I've lost my money, my dignity, my dream, but I'm still here. And for now, that's enough. Last night, I sat in a small café and wrote an email to my kids. I didn't tell them everything, just enough. Things didn't go as planned, but I'm okay, learning a lot. Love you. I sent it and ordered another coffee. The sun was setting. I watched it through the window. I'm older now, thinner, but I'm still breathing. And maybe that's all you can ask for.